The night was pitch black, with only the faint glow of Alex's truck headlights cutting through the heavy rain. The road twisted and turned like a snake slithering through the mountain, and every sharp curve was a test of skill and caution. Alex gripped the steering wheel tightly, his eyes straining to see through the pounding rain on the windshield. Just a few more miles, he muttered to himself, glancing at the GPS mounted on his dashboard. His job as a nighttime delivery driver wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and he prided himself on always getting the job done, no matter the conditions. Before we dive deeper into today's story, every new subscriber helps me keep sharing stories that inspire and touch your day. If you enjoy what you're watching, please hit that subscribe button. As he rounded another bend, his headlights caught a flash of silver ahead, a luxury sedan speeding recklessly through the storm. Alex's brow furrowed. What's their rush, he thought. The car weaved slightly, its taillights glowing like warning signs. That's a bad idea, Alex said under his breath. The road was slick with rain, and the sheer drop to the valley below offered no second chances. He honked his horn twice, trying to signal to the driver to slow down, but the sedan surged forward, its tires skimming dangerously close to the edge of the narrow road. Alex kept his distance, his instincts on high alert. The sedan's erratic movements made him nervous. He had seen too many accidents on roads like this, and the storm only made it worse. Then it happened. As the sedan approached a tight curve, its tires lost traction. The car skidded sideways, spinning out of control. Alex watched in horror as the vehicle careened off the road, crashing through the guardrail with a deafening crunch of metal. The sedan disappeared over the edge, tumbling down the steep embankment. Damn it! Alex slammed on the brakes, his truck skidding slightly before coming to a halt. He threw on his hazard lights, yanked on the parking brake, and jumped out into the storm. The rain was relentless, soaking him within seconds as he scrambled down the slippery slope. The faint glow of the sedan's headlights was his only guide. The vehicle lay crumpled halfway down the embankment, its front end buried in the mud. "Hello," Alex called out, his voice barely audible over the storm. "Can you hear me?" There was no response. Alex's heart pounded as he reached the car, peering through the shattered driver's side window. Inside, a woman sat slumped over the steering wheel, her face pale and streaked with blood from a cut on her forehead. "Hey!" Alex shouted, trying to rouse her. He tugged at the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. The frame was warped from the impact. "Hang on," he said more to himself than to her. He grabbed a wrench from his pocket and smashed the remaining glass, carefully reaching in to unlock the door from the inside. The door creaked open, and Alex leaned in, checking for a pulse. It was faint but steady. "You're alive," he murmured, relief washing over him. Suddenly, the acrid smell of smoke reached his nose. He turned his head to see thin wisps rising from the crumpled hood. His stomach clenched. "No time to waste," he muttered. Alex unfastened the woman's seatbelt, lifting her carefully out of the car. She stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering, but she didn't fully wake as he carried her up the muddy slope. He could hear the crackling of fire behind him. The sedan burst into flames just as he reached the top of the embankment, the heat searing his back. Alex didn't look back, focusing instead on getting the woman to safety. He laid her gently on the passenger seat of his truck, grabbing a first aid kit from the glove compartment as he dabbed at the cut on her forehead. Her eyes flickered open. "Where?" she murmured, her voice weak and disoriented. "You're okay," Alex said gently. "You were in an accident, but you're safe now." She blinked up at him, her brow furrowing as she tried to focus. "My car. It's gone," Alex said simply. "You're lucky to be alive." She stared at him, confusion giving way to fear. I couldn't stop the brakes." Alex nodded, piecing it together. "Something must have gone wrong, but it doesn't matter now. You're out of there, and that's what's important." The woman tried to sit up, but Alex placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Take it easy. You've been through a lot." For a moment, she simply looked at him, her breathing uneven. Who are you?" "Alex," he said with a faint smile. "Just a guy who was in the right place at the right time." The woman didn't respond, her head falling back against the seat as exhaustion overtook her. Alex watched her for a moment, then exhaled deeply. "Let's get you somewhere safe," he said softly, climbing into the driver's seat. As he drove away from the burning wreckage, the storm still raging outside, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this night was far from over. The rain continued to pour as Alex drove slowly along the winding road, his eyes scanning for any sign of help. Beside him, Olivia sat slumped in the passenger seat, her head resting against the window. Though she was awake, her movements were sluggish, and her face was pale. "How are you holding out?" Alex asked, his voice calm despite the chaos outside. Olivia opened her eyes, wincing slightly. "I've been better," she muttered. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," Alex replied. "You need rest, and I need to figure out how to get help." Olivia shifted uncomfortably, her usual confidence replaced by vulnerability. "I don't need rest," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "I need to get home." "Not in this weather you don't," Alex said firmly. "You're hurt, and these roads are dangerous enough without us trying to push through a storm." Olivia didn't respond, too exhausted to argue. After another mile, Alex spotted the outline of a building through the rain. A small roadside rest stop, abandoned and weathered by time. "This will have to do," he said, pulling the truck into the overgrown parking lot. He stepped out, braving the downpour as he moved to Olivia's side. Opening her door, he offered his hand. "Come on," he said. "Let me get you inside." Olivia hesitated, looking at his hand as if debating whether to accept his help. But the throbbing pain in her leg and the freezing rain left her no choice. She reached for him, and Alex helped her down, supporting her weight as they made their way toward the building. The rest stop was little more than a shell of its former self. Broken windows, peeling paint, and an air of neglect. Inside, the air was damp and musty, but it was better than being outside. "Sit here," Alex instructed, guiding Olivia to a bench along the wall. She sat gingerly, her shoulders sagging, as Alex pulled a flashlight from his truck and began inspecting the room. After a few moments, he returned with a dusty blanket and a broken stool, which he used to prop up her injured leg. "This isn't exactly the Ritz," Olivia said, her tone sharp despite her fatigue. Alex smirked as he knelt beside her, opening a small first aid kit. "Yeah, well, I left my reservation book back at the crash site," he said dryly. Olivia shot him a look, but said nothing as he gently cleaned the cut on her forehead. "You're lucky this isn't worse," Alex said, his voice softening. "The crash could have killed you." Olivia's gaze flickered to his face, and for a moment, she looked almost grateful. But the vulnerability passed quickly, replaced by her usual guarded expression. "Are you always this prepared?" she asked, nodding toward the first aid kit. "Part of the job," Alex replied. "You never know what you'll run into on the road." He wrapped a bandage around her head, securing it carefully. "There," he said, sitting back. "That should do for now." As the hours dragged on, the storm showed no signs of letting up. Alex managed to get a small fire going in the corner of the room, using scraps of wood and an old metal can. The flickering flames cast long shadows on the walls, adding a faint warmth to the otherwise desolate space. Olivia sat closer to the fire, her arms wrapped around herself as she stared into the flames. "I've never been in a situation like this before," she admitted quietly. "What? Being stranded in the middle of nowhere?" Alex asked, glancing at her. "No," Olivia said. "Being helpless." Alex raised an eyebrow. "You don't seem the helpless type." "I'm not," Olivia said quickly, almost defensively. "At least, I didn't think I was. But tonight," she trailed off, shaking her head. "It's not weakness to need help," Alex said after a moment. "It's human." Olivia let out a soft, bitter laugh. "Not in my world. Weakness gets exploited. People see it, and they use it against you." Alex leaned back against the wall, studying her. "Sounds like a rough world." "It is," Olivia admitted. "But it's the price you pay for success." "Well," Alex said, his tone light, "you're lucky you crashed into my world tonight. Here, the only thing that matters is getting through the storm." Olivia glanced at him, her expression softening despite herself. "You're annoyingly practical. You know that. Comes with the territory," Alex replied with a grin. As the fire crackled between them, an uneasy truce seemed to form. "Olivia," despite her discomfort, couldn't help but notice Alex's calm demeanor and resourcefulness. He wasn't fazed by the situation, and his confidence was oddly reassuring. Alex, for his part, saw glimpses of a different side of Olivia, a woman who, beneath the polished exterior, seemed tired of the battles she fought daily. The rain pounded against the roof, but for the first time since the crash, the tension between them began to ease. The morning after the storm was eerily quiet. The rain had stopped, but the aftermath was evident. Broken branches littered the ground, the air was heavy with moisture, and the once clear mountain road was now obscured by debris. Alex stood outside the rest stop, surveying the damage with a grim expression. "What's the plan?" Olivia asked, stepping out cautiously. Her leg was still sore, but she refused to let it slow her down. Alex turned to her, his face serious. "We need to figure out if the road is clear enough to get back to the main highway. If it's blocked, we're stuck until someone comes looking for us." Olivia frowned, crossing her arms. "That's not an option. I have people waiting for me, meetings to attend. We need to move." "Trust me, I'm aware," Alex said, his tone clipped, "but moving without knowing what's ahead isn't smart. Let me check the road first." They walked together in silence, Alex leading the way with a flashlight and Olivia limping slightly behind. When they rounded the bend, they came to an abrupt stop. The road was completely impassable. A massive landslide had swept rocks, mud, and trees across the path, creating a barrier that stretched as far as they could see. Olivia stared in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me." "Nope," Alex said grimly. "This isn't going anywhere soon." Olivia turned to him, her frustration bubbling over. "How did you not see this last night? We could have taken a different route." Alex raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "In case you forgot, I was busy saving your life." "That's not the point," Olivia snapped. "You should have." "Should have what?" Alex interrupted, his voice rising. "Magically cleared a landslide while carrying you up a hill in the pouring rain? Face it, Olivia, you wouldn't even be standing here if it wasn't for me." Olivia opened her mouth to argue, but the truth in his words left her momentarily speechless. Instead, she turned away, running a hand through her hair. "This can't be happening," she muttered. Alex let out a long sigh, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Look, I get that you're frustrated, but blaming me isn't going to solve anything. We're stuck here, and the only way we're getting out is by working together." Olivia glanced at him, her jaw tight. "And what exactly do you propose we do? Sit here and wait?" "No," Alex said firmly. "We survive. We keep ourselves warm, fed, and safe until help arrives. That's the only thing we can do." The tension between them hung heavy as they made their way back to the rest stop. Once inside, Alex immediately set to work gathering supplies. He found a rusted old tin and some dry kindling, piling it into the corner where they had built a fire the night before. "What are you doing?" Olivia asked, her tone sharp. "Teaching you how to start a fire," Alex replied, not looking up. "I don't need to know how to start a fire," Olivia said, folding her arms. "That's your job." Alex stopped, fixing her with a steady gaze. "And what happens if something happens to me? What then?" Olivia flinched at the question, but didn't answer. "Exactly," Alex said. "So, sit down and watch." Reluctantly, Olivia joined him by the fire pit. Alex explained each step as he worked, his patience surprising given their earlier argument. He showed her how to position the kindling, how to strike the flint to create sparks, and how to gently blow on the flame to coax it to life. When the fire finally caught, Olivia couldn't help but feel a small spark of pride. "See," Alex said with a faint smile. "Not so hard." Olivia rolled her eyes, but didn't argue. "Fine. What's next?" Over the next few hours, Alex continued teaching Olivia basic survival skills. He showed her how to filter water using an old shirt and charcoal, how to identify edible plants in the surrounding area, and how to reinforce their shelter against the unpredictable weather. Though she was reluctant at first, Olivia began to listen. She watched Alex's movements carefully, mimicking his techniques and asking questions when she didn't understand. "You're a fast learner," Alex remarked as she successfully tied a knot to secure the tarp over the broken window. "Don't sound so surprised," Olivia said, a hint of humor in her voice. Alex chuckled. Fair enough, but I'm impressed. You're tougher than you look. Olivia paused, glancing at him. For the first time, she saw no judgment in his eyes, only genuine respect. Thanks, she said softly. By the time night fell, the atmosphere between them had shifted. The earlier tension had given way to an uneasy camaraderie born out of necessity, but growing into something more. As they sat by the fire, Olivia found herself watching Alex, studying the way he moved with quiet confidence and purpose. She hated to admit it, but she was beginning to respect him and even trust him. Alex, for his part, noticed the change in Olivia. Her sharp edges seemed to be softening, and he could see glimpses of the person behind the polished facade. "We'll get through this," Alex said suddenly, breaking the silence. Olivia looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You sound so sure." "I am," Alex replied. "You just have to trust me." For the first time, Olivia felt like she could. The night was colder than the previous one, the air crisp and still. The fire crackled softly in the center of the rest stop, casting warm, flickering light across the room. Alex leaned back against the wall, his hands resting loosely on his knees as he stared into the flames. Across from him, Olivia sat with her arms wrapped around her knees, lost in thought. It had been a long day of trial and error, surviving on their combined efforts. The earlier tension between them had eased, replaced by a quiet companionship. The storm outside had passed, leaving only the sound of wind brushing through the cracks in the building. "You don't talk much, do you?" Olivia said suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. Alex glanced at her, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Not unless I have something worth saying." Olivia huffed a soft laugh. "Must be nice. In my world, silence isn't an option. People expect answers, decisions, constant performance." "Must be exhausting," Alex said, his tone neutral but curious. Olivia rested her chin on her knees, her gaze distant. "It is, but it comes with the territory, I guess. Being a CEO isn't just about running a company. It's about being the face of it. Every mistake, every weakness, it all comes back to you." Alex tilted his head. "Sounds lonely." Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "It is. Everyone around you either wants something from you or is waiting for you to fail. You can't trust anyone, not really. If they're not trying to take advantage of you, they're judging you." She looked up, meeting Alex's gaze. "That's why I keep people at arm's length. It's easier that way." Alex studied her for a moment, the flames reflecting in his steady eyes. "Sounds like a rough way to live." "It's what I've had to do to get where I am," Olivia said, her tone defensive. "You wouldn't understand." "Maybe not," Alex said, his voice calm. "But I get what it's like to have people depending on you, to feel like you can't let them down." Olivia frowned, her curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" Alex shifted slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "I lost my parents when I was 16, he began, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of sadness. "It was just me and my little sister after that. I had to grow up fast, take care of her, keep a roof over our heads. I started working odd jobs and eventually got into driving deliveries. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills." He paused, glancing at Olivia before continuing. "My sister's grown up now, doing her own thing, but those years taught me a lot about responsibility, about what it means to put someone else first. That's why I do what I do. It's not just a job. It's a way to make sure we're both okay." Olivia's expression softened, her usual sharpness giving way to genuine interest. "That must have been hard, raising a kid when you were still a kid yourself." "It was," Alex admitted. "But it made me who I am, and it gave me a goal. One day, I want to open my own business, a delivery service maybe, something stable, something I can build with my own hands." Olivia leaned forward slightly, resting her chin on her palm. "You don't just talk about surviving. You actually live it." "I respect that." Alex smiled faintly. "Thanks, but it sounds like you're surviving too, in your own way." Olivia let out a soft laugh. "Barely. Most days, it feels like I'm just holding it all together with duct tape and hope." "Welcome to the club," Alex said with a grin. For a moment, they sat in companionable silence, the fire crackling between them. Olivia glanced at Alex, her gaze thoughtful. "You're different," she said quietly. Alex raised an eyebrow. Different how? You don't ask for anything, Olivia said. You're not trying to impress me or take advantage of the situation. You're just you. Alex shrugged, his smile warm but modest. I don't know how to be anyone else. Olivia felt a pang of something unfamiliar, a feeling of appreciation for his authenticity. In her world, everyone wore masks, always angling for an advantage. But Alex was genuine, unpretentious, and kind in a way that felt rare. Thank you, she said softly. For what? Alex asked, tilting his head. For being here. For not letting me face this alone. Alex's gaze softened, his voice low. You don't have to thank me for that, Olivia. I'm just doing what I can. As the night deepened, the space between them seemed to shrink. For the first time, Olivia felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years, a sense that she could let her guard down, even if just for a little while. Alex, too, found himself drawn to her, seeing beyond her sharp exterior to the vulnerable, resilient woman beneath. In the flickering light of the fire, they sat together, two strangers finding solace in each other's presence. For the first time, the harshness of their circumstances felt a little more bearable. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink. Alex was outside, feeding the fire that had become their lifeline. Olivia joined him, her steps quieter than usual, her expression thoughtful. What's the plan for today? She asked, wrapping her arms around herself against the morning chill. Same as yesterday, Alex said, prodding the fire with a stick. Keep the fire going, see if we can spot anything, and make sure we've got enough food and water. Olivia nodded, her gaze distant. Do you think anyone's even looking for us? Before Alex could answer, a faint noise interrupted them, a low, distant hum that grew louder with each passing second. Do you hear that? Olivia asked, her voice sharp with urgency. Alex shot to his feet, his eyes scanning the horizon. A helicopter, he said, his heart racing. It's a helicopter. Both of them ran out of the shelter, their eyes fixed on a speck in the sky that was steadily growing larger. It was unmistakable, a rescue helicopter, its blades cutting through the morning air as it patrolled the area. Quick, we need to signal them, Alex shouted. He grabbed the dry wood they had collected and piled it onto the fire, feeding the flames until they roared higher. Olivia joined him, throwing handfuls of damp leaves onto the blaze to create thick plumes of smoke. The helicopter drew closer, the sound of its blades thundering in their ears. Olivia waved her arms frantically, shouting at the top of her lungs. Here! We're down here! The helicopter passed directly overhead, but instead of stopping, it continued on its trajectory, taking it farther and farther away. No! Olivia whispered, her voice trembling. No, no, no! She collapsed onto the ground, her head in her hands. We were so close, and they didn't see us. Alex crouched beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Hey, he said softly, it's not over. Olivia looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. How can you say that? We've done everything, and it still wasn't enough. What's the point? The point is that we're still here, Alex said, his tone firm but gentle. We've made it this far, and we'll keep going until they find us. Giving up isn't an option. Olivia sniffed, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Alex. I feel like I'm running on empty. You're stronger than you think, Alex said, his voice unwavering. And you're not doing this alone. I'm here, and we're in this together. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the weight of their shared struggle hanging in the air. Then Olivia nodded, taking a shaky breath. Okay, she said. What do we do now? The rest of the day was spent rebuilding their supplies and fortifying their shelter. Alex took the lead, but Olivia surprised him with her willingness to help. Here, she said, handing him a bundle of sticks she had collected. Is this enough for the fire? Perfect, Alex said, a hint of a smile on his face. You're getting the hang of this. Well, Olivia said with a faint smirk, I figured it's about time I pulled my weight. Together, they reinforced the shelter walls with sturdy branches and added extra layers of leaves for insulation. Olivia took on the task of organizing their food and water, even suggesting ways to ration their supplies more effectively. By evening, The shelter looked more secure than ever, and the fire was burning steadily. Alex leaned against the wall, watching Olivia as she carefully arranged their meager provisions. "You're full of surprises," he said, his tone light. Olivia glanced at him, raising an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just that you're not what I expected," Alex said. "When we first met, I thought you were, well, let's just say difficult." Olivia chuckled softly, shaking her head. "I can't blame you for thinking that. I know I'm not the easiest person to deal with." "You're not so bad," Alex said with a grin. Olivia sat down beside him, the firelight casting a warm glow over her face. "You've been patient with me," she said quietly. "More patient than I deserve." "Hey," Alex said, his voice soft. "You're doing great. This isn't easy for anyone." Olivia looked at him, her expression serious. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course," Alex said. For the first time in a long time, Olivia said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I feel safe." Alex's chest tightened at her words. "I'm glad," he said simply, "because as long as I'm here, you will be." They sat in silence for a while, the crackling fire the only sound. Despite the uncertainty of their situation, a quiet sense of hope settled between them. For the first time, Olivia didn't feel alone. And for the first time, Alex realized just how much he cared about the woman sitting beside him. The morning broke with a faint glimmer of hope as Alex sifted through the debris near the rest stop. He had been searching for anything useful, an overlooked can of food, a piece of equipment, when something metallic caught his arm high. Bending down, he unearthed a battered, mud-caked radio from beneath a pile of rubble. The casing was cracked, the wires frayed, but it was intact enough to spark a flicker of possibility. "Olivia!" Alex called, his voice filled with urgency. Olivia emerged from the shelter, brushing dirt off her hands. "What is it?" "Look," Alex said, holding up the radio. "It's ancient, but it might still work." Olivia frowned, skeptical. "Do you think you can fix it?" "I have to try," Alex said firmly. "If this thing still has any juice, it could be our ticket out of here." Back inside the shelter, Alex set to work using the tools he had scavenged and his ingenuity. The task was grueling, tedious, and frustrating, but he refused to give up. Olivia sat nearby, watching him with growing concern. "You've been at this for hours," she said eventually. "Maybe you should take a break." "I can't," Alex replied without looking up. His hands were steady despite the exhaustion evident in his voice. "The sooner I get this working, the sooner we can get out of here." Olivia hesitated, then placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You've done so much already, Alex. You don't have to do this all at once." Alex paused, glancing up at her. "I know," he said softly, "but I promised you we'd make it through this, and I keep my promises." For a moment, Olivia didn't know what to say. Instead, she grabbed a bottle of water and handed it to him. "At least drink this," she said, her voice quiet. Alex nodded, taking a long sip before diving back into his work. Hours later, just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, a crackling sound filled the room. Alex froze, staring at the radio as static buzzed faintly from the speaker. "Is that?" Olivia started, her voice tinged with hope. "It's working," Alex said, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. He grabbed the microphone and pressed the button. "Mayday, mayday! This is a distress signal. 2 individuals stranded near rest stop 46. Do you copy?" For a moment, there was only static. Then, faintly a voice came through. "This is search and rescue. We hear you. Hold your position. Help is on the way." Olivia let out a laugh of relief, her hands flying to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. Alex leaned back, his exhaustion giving way to a wave of triumph. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with quiet pride. "No," Olivia said, looking at him with a smile that was equal parts gratitude and admiration. "You did it." The sound of helicopter blades filled the air the next morning, cutting through the stillness like a beacon of hope. Alex and Olivia stood outside the shelter, waving their arms as the aircraft descended. When the rescue team approached, Olivia turned to Alex, her expression earnest. "Alex," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "you didn't just save my life. You taught me how to trust again. I don't know how to thank you for that." Alex gave her a small, lopsided smile. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "Just don't forget it." As the team helped Olivia toward the helicopter, she paused, turning back to Alex. "Are you coming?" she asked, her voice tinged with something unspoken. Alex hesitated for a fraction of a second before following her to the aircraft. Once aboard, as the helicopter lifted off, Olivia reached out and took Alex's hand in hers. He looked down at their intertwined fingers, then met her gaze. "There's something I need to say," he began, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "I don't know when it happened. Maybe it was the first night by the fire, or maybe it was seeing how strong you are, but I've fallen for you." Olivia's eyes widened, her breath catching. For a moment, she didn't speak, her emotions swirling in a way she hadn't expected. Instead of responding immediately, she squeezed his hand, her grip firm and reassuring. Her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper locked onto his. Alex smiled faintly, understanding the depth of her gesture without needing words. As the helicopter soared towards safety, Olivia looked out at the landscape below, her hand still in Alex's. The journey that had started with a crash had brought her something she hadn't known she needed, a connection that felt real, unshakable, and hers to cherish. Returning to their respective lives felt surreal. The chaos of the mountain and the quiet camaraderie of survival were replaced with the relentless pace of everyday routines. Olivia was back in her powerful office, juggling meetings and decisions, while Alex returned to his steady work as a driver. Yet no matter how busy they were, neither could shake the memories of what they had shared. For Olivia, her days felt hollow. The luxury, the power, none of it held the same meaning anymore. She often found herself staring out her office window, her thoughts drifting to Alex, his calm strength, his authenticity, his unwavering belief in her. It was something she hadn't realized she needed until she met him. Alex, too, couldn't forget. Every stretch of the open road reminded him of her laugh by the fire or the way she had opened up about her fears. He missed her, though he told himself that their worlds were too different for anything real to come of it. A week after their rescue, an elegant invitation arrived in Alex's mailbox. It was embossed with gold lettering, bearing Olivia's name and the insignia of her company. "You are cordially invited to the annual gala of Horizon Enterprises. Please join us as our honored guest." Attached was a handwritten note. "Alex, I owe you more than I can say. Please come. Olivia." The gala was an extravagant affair, held in a sprawling ballroom filled with the city's elite. Alex felt out of place in his borrowed suit as he navigated the crowd, but he pushed forward, determined to see Olivia. When he finally spotted her, she was standing on stage, commanding the room's attention with her usual poise. Dressed in a sleek black gown, she radiated confidence, but there was a warmth in her expression that Alex hadn't seen before. "Ladies and gentlemen," Olivia began, her voice clear and strong. "Tonight is about celebration of success, of perseverance, and of the people who make it all possible." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the crowd until it landed on Alex. "But there's one person here tonight who deserves special recognition. Someone who reminded me what it means to truly live, to trust, and to find strength in the most unexpected places." The room grew quiet as Olivia continued. "Alex Harper isn't just the man who saved my life. He's the man who helped me find myself again. For that, I will always be grateful." Applause filled the room, but Alex barely heard it. His eyes were locked on Olivia as she smiled at him, her gratitude and admiration shining through. After the gala, Olivia found Alex on the balcony, gazing out at the city lights. She approached quietly, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. "Hey," she said, her voice gentle. Alex turned, his face breaking into a smile. "Hey, thank you for coming," Olivia said, stepping closer. "It means a lot to me." "I wasn't going to miss it," Alex replied, though with a smile. "I wasn't expecting the speech." Olivia laughed softly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I meant every word." They stood in silence for a moment, the cool night air wrapping around them. Then Olivia spoke, her tone quieter. "Alex, I've been doing a lot of thinking since we got back. About everything. About us." Alex's heart skipped a beat, But he stayed silent, letting her continue. I was so focused on control, on proving myself, that I forgot how to let people in, Olivia admitted. But you made me feel safe, like I didn't have to do it all alone. She looked up at him, her eyes soft. I think I fell for you somewhere between that first fire and the radio you fixed. And I don't want to let you go. Alex's breath caught, a slow smile spreading across his face. You're not the only one who fell, he said. I've been trying to figure out how someone like me could fit into your world, but maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe we just make our own. Olivia reached for his hand, lacing her fingers with his. I like the sound of that. A few weeks later, they found themselves on a quiet country road. The windows of Alex's old pickup rolled down as they drove through fields of golden wheat. Olivia leaned back in the seat, her hair blowing in the wind, a rare look of pure contentment on her face. This is nice, she said, glancing at Alex with a smile. Yeah, he agreed, his hand resting lightly on hers. It is. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, they both knew they had found something rare. Together, they had turned a near tragedy into a new beginning, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. For Alex and Olivia, the road ahead was theirs to navigate together. As we close this chapter on Alex and Olivia's extraordinary journey, we're reminded that love and hope can be found in the most unexpected places, even on the winding roads of life's challenges. Their story is one of courage, trust, and the beauty of human connection. Thank you for joining us on Alex and Olivia's incredible journey, a tale of survival, resilience, and the power of trust to heal even the deepest wounds. From a harrowing crash to a life-changing rescue, their story reminds us that sometimes love and strength are found in the most unexpected places. Through their shared struggles and moments of vulnerability, they discovered that even in the toughest times, we don't have to face the storm alone. Their journey proves that with trust, courage, and the willingness to embrace the unknown, we can find hope and love in the most unlikely of situations.